Hello everyone, my name is Axel Schmidt. I'm a Sphere trainer. I'm also one of the 3 Sphere focal point persons in Germany, together with Dr. Oliver Hoffmann of the Johanniter and Dr. Markus Moke of ADH. I would love to be in the training room together with you. Unfortunately, we can't, but we are here on a journey together, and the journey is actually about the WASH chapter of the Sphere Handbook, which you can see. It also exists as a physical book. And WASH chapter is one of the 4 technical chapters of the Sphere Handbook, and WASH actually stands for Water Supply, Sanitation and Hygiene Promotion. We just have 20 minutes. However, I think we have to go a little bit deeper, and we have to go to the foundation chapters of Sphere first, because maybe it's a little surprise for you, maybe not. But according to my experience in dozens of Sphere trainings, and also as one of the facilitators in the first global Sphere MOOC, massive open online course in English, which was done in early 2021 this year, that still the biggest misunderstanding of Sphere and the Sphere Handbook is that 15 liters of water per person within 24 hours is a minimum standard. That's not true, and why it's not true, and to understand how minimum standards are working in the technical chapters, we need to go to the foundation chapters of Sphere first. You can find the Sphere foundation chapters here, but we also go back to the homepage, and then I show you a little function which is great. There's the index in this handbook, like you would usually use in books, but also on the digital version. There's the search function, which I will show you on the starting page of the Sphere Handbook. So here we are at the front page of the interactive handbook, and what you can see here is part of the Humanitarian Standard Partnership, because there's not only the Sphere Handbook, but there are many initiatives in various technical aspects of humanitarian response, which are working together with Sphere, and they are put together in a Humanitarian Standard Partnership. And I just scroll down so you can see the other standards and also the indication of all the languages where it's translated to. More are coming. So you get an overview of the Sphere companion standards. So the latest one is minimum standard for camp management. But actually, we wanted to find the foundation chapters in Sphere. So the great function here is you can look at the index, and here on the online version, there's the search function. So for example, if you type in foundation chapters, we can have a look for them. Here we can see the results. In this case, 6 results. And here in the Water Sphere chapter, which is the introduction, but it also gives a great overview about the context in which you can use Sphere. And it gives an overview of the whole process. It gives an overview about many technical aspects worth reading. We are now clicking on Water Sphere to find the technical chapters. Sorry, to find the foundation chapters and where it's being introduced. So here we are, and here you can see the 4 technical chapters of the Sphere Handbook: WASH, Food Security and Nutrition, Shelter and Settlement, and Health. But you can also see the connection with the Sphere foundation chapters. And I want to take another 2 minutes to show you the importance of those foundation chapters. So here you can see the Humanitarian Charter, and you can find it on the bar to the left. But those 5 pages, it's just 5 pages of the Sphere Handbook, is the backbone, the most important part of it, the heart of the Sphere Handbook. And this you have to read to understand and get what it's all about. Because Sphere is, as you know, a rights-based approach for quality and accountability for the affected people. Where all the rights are coming from, you can find an Annex 1, and you see all the legal foundations of Sphere. And the most important right, the right to life with dignity. The other two rights are the right to receive humanitarian assistance and the right to protection and security. So in the Humanitarian Charter, those 5 pages, you find the common principles, rights and duties, but you also find more about our commitment as humanitarians. Let's quickly look into the protection principles. As a second foundation chapter, you find the 4 protection principles in that chapter, and this is not changed much from the 2011 version of the handbook. The other Sphere Foundation chapter is the core humanitarian standard with its 9 commitments, which you should read. And this is often called a flower, but as you can see here, in the center are the communities and people affected. And now ask yourself, how much are they in the center? How accountable are you in your work? How accountable are humanitarians in their processes? How many processes are in place for upwards accountability to buy something, for example? And how many established processes are down with the affected people? Sphere is a great tool to improve your accountability for affected people. The 9 commitments are very useful for you because you can also regard them as processes that you, as a stakeholder being active in humanitarian response, should do to reach more of this quality work and accountability. So please remember that you cannot use any of the technical chapters and none of the minimum standards without using the foundation chapters of Sphere. So let's have a look on the WASH chapter of Sphere, which is the first technical chapter. And you find different topics: hygiene promotion, water supply, excreta management, vector control, solid waste management, and WASH and disease outbreaks and health settings. Under each column, you find more standards which are related to the topic. But it's very important to understand that Sphere tries to make connections to the other standards, to the other topics within a technical chapter, but you also, as I said earlier, you have to connect those minimum standards to the foundation chapters and also relate them to other Sphere companion standards. It's very complex, but Sphere, when you read through it, is helping you to get that and to go away from your very isolated silo view on technical problems. So let's dive into maybe the most famous misunderstanding, the 15 liters and the minimum standard which is connected to that. And this 15 liters per person within 24 hours, you can find in this section water supply, and more precisely within the standard 2.2 water quality. So let's have a look there. So here we are at 2.1 access and water quantity. I want to make clear that 15 liters per person per day is under the key indicators. But what is then the actual standard and how is it connected to this 15 liters? So the minimum standard in the Sphere Handbook is always in this little frame. And I want to read the minimum standard out to you. So we are in the WASH technical chapter. We are in the water supply area, and now we are more precisely in the standard 2.1 access and water quantity. And now the standard. People have equitable and affordable access to sufficient quantity of safe water to meet their drinking and domestic needs. All minimum standards in the logic of Sphere are qualitative. They always aim to reach a certain quality. In this case, equitable, affordable, sufficient water to meet domestic and personal needs. You don't find a number in there because all standards are qualitative. So now we listened to the minimum standard, which is qualitative. And now a lot of people I had trainings with, and I trained Sphere in a dozen countries in many, many contexts. And sometimes people tell me, this is not relevant. I cannot use Sphere in my context because my context is different. And then another person says, my context is different. In the logic of Sphere, and Sphere is the common language that we have in humanitarian response. It's what we as a sector agreed on. What is the best thing to do? What we know for now. Sphere Office is small, but it's basically us as a humanitarian community and the thousands of people who contributed to the Sphere Handbook. So, to me, this applies to any context, this minimum standard, like all the others, because we want to reach a certain quality. And the quality of this minimum standard might be sometimes in very bad situations, like almost like a utopia, something that you cannot reach. But the minimum standard really helps me and helps the humanitarians to get a direction, to understand where we are aiming for, and that we agreed on that before a disaster actually strikes. Very often we don't reach the minimum standard. We don't have equitable and affordable access and sufficient quantity of safe water, for example. But if we don't have that, there are usually good explanations to that. And as a humanitarian stakeholder, we usually write reports. We have to report to the donor. We have to talk to our colleagues. We have to give explanations why something is not possible. The foremost, we have to provide this information, and we have to get into two-way communication with the community and affected people why something is not possible. And people understand. For example, if you want to provide water to a community and you're waiting for your supplies, and then maybe after an earthquake or aftershock, a bridge collapsed, people will understand why you cannot provide the water, for example, if you are having a water treatment system or something like that. But being accountable means that you're reporting. And this is the thing. We are aiming for this minimum standard. Maybe we cannot reach it, but we have to be in coordination and two-way communication with all the stakeholders to make it clear why it's not possible. In the logic of Sphere, the minimum standard is being supported by key actions. So Sphere, the humanitarian community, is suggesting you to do certain things to reach that standard. In this case, for example, identify most appropriate groundwater or surface water sources and so forth. Or determine how much water is required and the system needed to deliver. These are suggestions. If you know your context better, if you're an expert, you don't have to do those key actions to reach the minimum standard because maybe you're the expert together with the other stakeholders in that specific context. But with the actions you decided to do with the others, you should aim and thrive to reach that minimum standards. The key indicators that Sphere is giving, they are divided into different categories, and you can look that up in the What is Sphere introduction. But the key indicators are supporting the key actions. So they help you to identify how far you went, if you reached your goal, or where you are. And now we come to the 15 liters per person within 24 hours. That's average volume of water used for drinking and domestic hygiene. A key indicator. It's one of many. Since all minimum standards are qualitative, a quantity measurement cannot be a minimum standard. It's just something the sector agreed on. If we don't have any information, we start with 15 liters, but that's our starting point. But we also want that, for example, if we don't know better, that it's just 250 people per tap or 500 people per hand pump or 100 people per laundry facilities. This is the logic of the key indicators. So what comes after the key indicators in the Sphere Handbook in any technical chapter under every minimum standard is the guidance notes. And the guidance notes is something great because these are advices from very experienced humanitarian sphere users on very technical things. And there, I love it. You getting some great extra thoughts, even if you're highly experienced on a technical problem. And it also helps you to make the links and to go out of your silo where you are. For example, at the moment, water quantity. And here, for example, you can see water source selection. At the end, it makes a link, for example, to shelter and settlement standard. So it's linking another technical chapter. But also, for example, when you think of access and equity, we have to make the connection to so many other things with our activities. And one thing with access could be, for example, older persons or persons with disabilities. And there, this homepage, as I indicated before, gives you assistance because there are companion standards exactly dealing with that, which can be persons with disabilities or also child protection. So every minimum standard is following the same thing in hygiene promotion, but also in health, but also in the companion standard, that you have a qualitative minimum standard, a quality you want to reach. It's supported by key actions which are suggested by the humanitarian community. You can do, if you don't know better, if you're an expert, do it differently. Key indicators will help you to measure, and guidance notes will give you tips. However, you should read the introduction of every technical chapter, and here are some essential concepts in water supply hygiene promotion. And it says, and I really want to emphasize, community engagement is crucial. Again, here in this very helpful diagram, you can see that community engagement is at the center. So Sphere is putting the community and people affected at the center. It uses this people-centered approach to get closer to the right to life with dignity. Two-way communication and participation will help you to reach more accountability, and it will help you to make better projects for the people. To me, one guidance is one quote which I would like to read out for you. We cannot add value unless we know the existing value. We cannot know the existing value unless communities tell us. People will not tell us unless they trust us. They will not trust us unless we know how to listen and to engage. This is a PIFM quote, People First Impact Method, and it shows that we have to create that space for the two-way communication with people affected. How can we find out what is sufficient water for people? According to my experience, this is very different in the summer in Jordan in a refugee camp or somewhere else in the winter. So people know how much water is sufficient. We have to have access and we have to listen to the different stakeholders to tell us what those minimum standards, how we can define them. And this is a process where Sphere can help you with a common language to make the linkages between the different technical sectors, to make the linkages with the foundation chapters, and to make the linkage with all the different stakeholders and at the foremost with the affected people. In the second part, you can listen to my friends and colleagues in Indonesia, how they put this very theoretical first part into practice. If you have questions and concerns, go to the Sphere homepage or send me an email. Thank you.